Hey guys, what I found most interesting about the play is how Esther, by making intimate apparel for other characters, formed intimate relationships with them. Some of them, such as Miss Van Buren and Mr. Marks, were also white, and that's pretty interesting because although it is unfortunate, during 1905, it was pretty rare for whites and African Americans to have intimate relationships. It was clear to me that Mr. Marks and Esther had a lot of affection for each other, but unfortunately society and the cultural rules ruled them out from being together. The first value for this play that I noticed was that all humans, no matter the race, class status, or gender, share similar concerns and worries and all want to feel loved. For example, Esther was longing for love and wanted to find a man, and Mrs. Van Buren was also longing for love and affection from her husband. The second value I noticed was that humans are always looking for ways to achieve a better life and to better themselves. For example, George wanted to leave the Panama Canal and come to America in search of the American dream, and Esther was saving her money to open her own beauty parlor someday and be her own business owner. One thing I circled while reading the play was the term socialite, which referred to Mrs. Van Buren. I did not totally understand what socialite meant, but when I researched it, it means someone who is very wealthy and comes from an aristocratic background, meaning they wear the best fashions, attend social gatherings with other wealthy people, among other things. This connects with other details of the play, as to me the play is a story of how different people from different backgrounds interact with people. And this only gives us a clear image of one of the characters. I think this play both reinforces some aspects of our understanding of the African American culture, but also resists some offensive African American stereotypes. I think one of the prime reasons Lynn Nottage wrote this play was to explore how African Americans had a lot of limitations set by society in their way, such as not coming from wealthy families, as their recent ancestors were slaves, to not receiving the same opportunities as whites in terms of jobs. She also shows that African Americans are hardworking and desire a better life for themselves, despite the limitations put on them by society, and that they all wanted to have a better life just like white people or any other humans. Yes, stereotypes still exist for African Americans and many other groups today. I think what perpetuates these stereotypes is a human nature to classify things as groups. For example, if an Asian person gets robbed by a white man, evolutionarily he might begin to be more vigilant when he sees another white man, as he sees them as a threat. To overcome stereotypes, people have to spend time with people outside of their own. Only then can they realize that an individual is a person and not just their stereotype. For example, psychological studies done in the past have shown that in a camp full of African American boys and Caucasian boys, at first the white boys will only play with other white boys and vice versa. But after they are forced to play with each other, and later on when they are given the choice, they will play with boys from other races. One question I have is that we talked a lot about race, but how do you think gender is portrayed in intimate apparel? My second question is, do you think the relationships Esther formed with Mrs. Van Buren and Mr. Marks is a realistic relationship that could have occurred during those times? Thanks.